We are live here with the man, the myth, the true north exemplar, David Osk. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing well. I tell you, this day has been filled with a lot of good news and like people I haven't connected with in a while. It's Friday, and I'm definitely not one who, is oh no, it's Monday, thank God it's Friday kind of a guy. I rather enjoy everything that I do, and at the same time, for some reason today just feels like one of those Fridays where you're sliding into home plate and then get a bit of good news and connect with some people you haven't connected with in a while, and it just feels great. So, how about you?
Yeah, man, excited. It's interesting. I know this doesn't quite relate to what you're saying, but I had a conversation with my kids earlier this morning, and they were saying, "Dad, it's Friday. Why do you have to work?" And they're kind of asking those things. And it's interesting. I was just telling them, like, Daddy loves to work. Now, I love spending time with my family. Even more so. Like, I love spending time with my kids. I love spending time with my wife. But it's one of those things where, whether it's Monday or whether it's Saturday or, whatever day it is, I genuinely feel really grateful for what it is that I'm doing. I love going to work. I love spending time with my family. I've got amazing friends. So life wasn't always this way. I don't mean to suggest that everything's all rosy. Some days we had a difficult conversation with my wife just the other day. So anyways, the point of today that we want to talk about is how do you know when you're heading true north? Right. And how do you really develop your identity sets your direction, and so you often hear sometimes, like in sports, that with a team that's been really successful, but then suddenly they seem to have lost their way, right? That they're struggling, and maybe their identity was that they were a hard-nosed defensive team, and you'll hear commentators often say they've lost their identity, right? There's a sense that they knew who they were, they knew what their strengths were, they had a clear direction they're heading in that was really successful, they were flowing on all cylinders. But for some reason, right, they lost that sense and they stopped playing to their strengths. They stopped understanding what made them uniquely them.
Yeah.
And so that's just true, right, in general in life, whether we're talking about in your business, having a clear sense of identity, that guides you to exactly the types of clients you want to work with, exactly the work that you should be doing, what's the best use of your strengths, or whether we're talking about in your personal life. And so wanted to really talk about, how does someone know if they're heading true north? And let's kind of define what true north is. And if I can just briefly say the reason why this has really just kind of hit me so hard recently, on my son's 6th birthday, December 2nd, we were out with my parents, and my mom was saying that she had really loved some of the content that was coming out, and some of her friends had seen some of the emails I was sending out. And she said, but my friends were asking me, so what is it that you do? Like, what is it that you specialize in? And I thought it was pretty funny here at the age of 42, still getting asked by my mom, what is it that you do? And mostly I'm grateful that she has an interest. So I started to explain this whole thing of, identity, and about how people attach their identity to what they produce, and, these external things that don't actually end up leading them in the right direction. It ends up being very unfulfilling, or maybe in one area of their life, they feel like they have, clarity and certainty, but then they're totally directionless in another. But as I was trying to explain it, I was like, oh, this is taking way too long. Like I'm losing interest in my own response to my mom. I needed to figure out a way to be able to say it in a really short, compact way. So I paused for a moment and I simply said, I help people discover their true north. And that was it. It was like a light bulb. She's like, oh, I get that. She kind of smiled, like, I can say that to my friends. Everything else I was saying was way too much for her to be able to, relate to her friends.
Sure.
And that's it. That's what you and I do, right? When we lead these group calls that we have, when we're out there coaching people, when we're out there leading people through, the work that we do, we're helping people to really dial in on a language, right? Those values that you internalize, that if you follow those in the decisions you make, the relationships you choose, they will consistently point you true north. And so, I don't know, what do you think as we dial this language in and talk about helping people to find their true north? What does that mean to you? And yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because as an entrepreneur, there are so many days when I'm busting new ground, right? I'm developing a product. I'm calling it a big company, right? Pitching them something, that kind of stuff. And what's interesting is I feel like there's always that sense of, some anxiety and fear, maybe imposter syndrome, like who am I to be standing with these people, that kind of stuff. And what I've found as I've dialed in on who I am at my core, right? I mean, and I'd love, by the way, I'd love to hear you talk about the difference between magnetic north, I think we were talking about, and actually true north. But now that I've dialed in on those things that are absolutely core, to my essence, I mean, I just have such a more solid sense, no matter where I am, whether I'm alone, whether I'm on a call with somebody, whether I'm, developing an idea, I understand the tools that are in my belt, the things that motivate me, the impact that I want to have, all that kind of stuff. And on a very real sense, life just doesn't seem, as scary. And to juxtapose that, right? Before I did some of this deep work, I'll be honest with you, I was like, pick me, in so many ways, depending on who I was with and what I was doing, scared out of my mind, just so racked with anxiety and that kind of stuff. And what I'm finding is the more that I keep these things that are absolutely true about me front and center, as you were talking here, I was writing words down like generous, as opposed to, shrinking, feeling just confident, or maybe the word is even sober. I love that word, just a sober give and take in life, just not too high, not too low, just, hey, here's where I'm at, as opposed to feeling like a fraud and feeling, the big question mark over your head. And energy, confidence, and then also I'll say one other thing here, and I'd love to hear what your thought is on that difference really between magnetic and the true north. Is there's consequences for not knowing your true north. And I don't care what anybody says, the deal breakers in our life, right? Marriage, parenting, let alone our jobs, right? I mean, if I'm not in lockstep, like if Lisa and I are not in lockstep with those things that we have defined as a couple, as what true north looks like, or, even in my business, boy, whatever way the wind is blowing that day is the way that I end up going. And that is a miserable place to be, and a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, like you said, I think you sway. There's so much inconsistency, right? I know before I really felt dialed into, the true north, understanding really what it was, that this is exactly the impact I want to have on my kids, right? This is exactly the strengths I want to be using in my business to have, this impact, and have put a clear language on that.
Yeah.
I was really just kind of winging it, from day to day. And so that leads into, right, the difference between a compass that is actually, using magnetic, north, which means that its north is dependent upon the electromagnetic field of the earth, right? So it's reading the earth, and then depending its sense of north based off of that, as opposed to true north, which is actually always pointing consistently, to the North Pole. And the difference on that, I think it was maybe 10 years ago or so, the two actually aligned. True north and magnetic north were aligned for the first time in like 360 years, right? Otherwise, the compass, north is always slightly off, right? It's a little bit pointing to the west or the east or something like that. And the significance of that, right, is I feel like I'm not even sure I was pointing anywhere even remotely north for a lot of my life, right? It felt like I was heading south or stagnant, or mostly running in circles. That's the honest truth there, right? Yeah. That when I didn't have a clear direction of this is exactly who I want to be, where I'm heading, that I allowed my environment, I allowed the electromagnetic field of the people I was around to dictate, the choices I made, whether or not, I'd create content or I'd do something, and whether I felt good about it or not was contingent upon the result it produced. Please affirm me, please like me, approve of me, help me to feel good about myself, because I didn't have a clear sense of what made me feel good internally.
And so, you're just nailing it. And I think part of my story is when you lack the identity portion, that just clear vocabulary. Well, there's that question mark, both like kind of above your head. People can kind of see it, right? And then you feel it, and then you're looking to something or someone or an accomplishment to give you that sense of meaning. And of course, it never satisfies, and they can't fix that part of me. nor can, another accomplishment, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I've noticed here in my, mid 40s is having really a radical clarity around my true north. I'm not looking for that anymore. I'm done, right? I'm not looking for that. I really, truly am not looking for that fulfillment. I'm bringing, and you've heard me say this, bringing the fullness of who I am to any situation. I mean, tonight I'm singing with my daughter's, violin school, Ave Maria. And you know what? I'm going to be present there and bringing the absolute fullness of who I am just to experience fulfillment, as opposed to, will somebody in this room please tell me I'm good, right?
Yeah.
It's so empty. And whether you're a carpenter or a painter or a lawyer or a doctor, that kind of thing, that internal compass is everything.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times the things that, at least for me, disrupt my ability to find my true north are feelings, right? Is that when I feel fear, when I'm scared, when I'm anxious, when I'm, obviously those are my main disruptors. I woke up the other day and I don't know why, right? But I felt this wave of fear just like overtake me. And I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. I could feel my chest. Like I just felt this heaviness, and I felt every part of me just wanted to run. Like I just wanted to avoid, I wanted to cancel all my responsibilities for the day. And I felt this impending sense of doom. Like, either I was doing something wrong, I was, something bad was about to happen. And this isn't a new feeling for me, right? I've had this throughout my life. The difference this time is that instead of reacting to that, right? And usually because it creates a snowball, this kind of feedback loop, right? That I feel that feeling and it triggers in me a belief or a thought, that you're not good enough, that this is not heading, you're not going to be able to handle this. And all of a sudden, if I don't catch that quickly and redirect, right, that thing snowballs and I am heading in a direction that is far, far from true north, right? And I really am starting to procrastinate. I'm starting to avoid things I'm not dealing. But this time I knew to just breathe, right? Hold on. I use my favorite personal development quote from Viktor Frankl: between stimulus, what happens to us, and our response is a space, and in that space is where our capacity and growth exist.
Yeah.
And so I utilize that space, right, to just simply allow the feeling to kind of pass, allow that time for my prefrontal cortex, my executive functioning to kick in. And once that kicks in, I can access my values. I can start problem solving, right? And now all of a sudden I'm heading true north. I feel the fear, but I'm able to quickly navigate in a way that I was like, hey, I can handle this. I'm going to hit these problems head on. I'm going to have a conversation with, someone that I need to have with. And it was amazing how I then was able to harness, that fear and drive it in a way that felt really, really productive.
Man, I love that. And thanks for being really transparent about that. Quite, you when you think of Dr. Andy Garrett or, that kind of stuff, you think, oh man, they're bulletproof and all that kind of stuff. And what I love though is you've done the deep work, right? You're helping people get through that. And you've had, an incredibly challenging story, but we all have. And I just love the fact that you're, on a very clinical level, right? Understanding what, kind of how the cortisol rises and, we get to that reptilian brain and we got to get to that high functioning portion of our mind to be able to access those things that we have previously, right, done the work and named as absolute core to who we are and those things that we stand upon. And, but again, here's what's fascinating. And I don't want to take too long here, but the ripple effect, not only in my life, right, but I'm the leader of my family, right? And I take that incredibly seriously. And when I think about the ripple effect that I would have not only with, Lisa, Parker, and Kate, but then also in business, right? What if you're the leader of an organization, that has multiple employees, a church, what if you have, influential people as part of your organization who don't understand their true north, and they bring that question mark wherever they go. They've got that just general sense of, oh man, I don't know quite what's going on here and which way we're going, and that it creates so much chaos and uncertainty in everybody within that organization. But of course, and internally, right? But of course, when we know those things that are, like, why am I different from you? My uniqueness, my identity, those things that I hold fast to. What's fascinating is just the opposite happens then. I mean, there's just this lack of the question mark. There's lack of anxiety. There's everybody is operating in their, their fullness, their strengths, and their uniqueness. The generosity starts to come forward. It's just the opposite. But there is a deep, deep consequence for not knowing these things.
Yeah. That, there's a story that I'll share quickly here, that was talking with a client of mine who is extremely successful in his business, right? He leads a huge team in a company that's growing like crazy, and he is amazing at the work that he does, right? I mean, truly handles complex challenges in ways where he stays calm, and he's able to clearly, come up with solutions that are creative, innovative, and he gets compensated extremely well for what he does because he's amazing at it, and his team really follows him, and he does a good job there. At home, right, he is just a mess. I mean, consistently responds to his family in a way that he knows often in the time, right? Like, I know I shouldn't say this, but then before he knows it, right, like he says something that just causes damage. Yeah. And he feels awful about it, and then he retreats and he wants to spend more time. And I said, help me understand how you are so effective in this area at work, right, but yet so wildly ineffective at home. And his initial response was, I don't know. I was like, hey, you're paying me a lot of money. I need you to go deeper than that. And as we kind of dug into it, what really came down to at work, he has certainty. He has a sense of what his true north is. He knows what his strengths are. He knows how to apply them. He's confident in applying them. He knows where he's going. He knows what impact he wants to have on the team that he's leading. So he has real clarity, and he feels good about where he's heading. The problem is that his identity's been wrapped up in that. So he justifies, right, being completely off course in other areas of his life, because he's, kind of said, well, I'm a provider and that's what I do. And I said, man, we need to go lean in and do some identity work. We need to do this. And his response was, you mean identity in my family, right? And with my wife and my kids. I said, no. You should not have separate true norths, right? You shouldn't have an identity at work that's totally disconnected and doesn't work at home. That's way too confusing, right? If you're going this way in one area, this way in another, and that, I mean, really, you'll end up going in circles.
Yeah, like you say about the rowing, the oars rowing in different directions. It's exhausting.
Yeah. And oddly enough, so we go in, right? I have them start doing the work, and I believe, and we're going to create a series on this whole true north concept, right? But there are three major components that when you get these three pillars lined up, that you will consistently head true north, right? One's your values, but it's not just defining your values. You got to go much deeper than that, right? It's about how you apply your values. Two is about understanding where your motivation source comes from, and being able to tap into a source of motivation that will always lead you true north. And it's the key to getting into flow state, right? And then three is really being able to define your strengths, right, that you want, and how you want to apply them to have we call it the virtuous impact. But what goodness do you want to bring into your family, into the business that you do, right? That's really important to you. And so when you get those three parts, and when this client, did that work, it's amazing. Within about 2.5 months, right, his relationship and how he was interacting with his family changed radically. He is having deeper connections. He's having conversations that actually really matter to him, right? The surprising thing to him was, though, is the impact it had at work, where he already was really successful. And he's like, I know my true north there. But the reality is when he really dialed in a coherent sense of true north, right, that just was consistent to who he was, the core aspect of who he was, he realized, man, people were following me because of that title, but I am so much more impactful, and I invest so much more into my team, right? And I've gotten, if I was operating at 75% before, we are operating at 95% now. And so he's seen a real significant increase in, the team that he's leading, and how they're stepping up. Because when you dial into that true north, right, it magnetizes, where all of a sudden other people feel the certainty. I base this off of my grandpa. My grandpa, started Carl's Jr., had a very successful business that grew into over 1,000 restaurants, right? He was innovative. He led a huge team, but he also had 12 kids and 50 grandkids. And I don't know how many great grandkids. And he had the ability to actually have a personal relationship with each one of them.
Right.
That's remarkable, right? He had a deeply, enriching spiritual life. He was involved with charitable causes, and he wasn't perfect, far, far from it. But when I was around him, throughout my adolescence and early adulthood, I was lost. But I could feel the clarity in his direction that helped me to feel safe. In fact, I got a chance to eulogize him And that's actually was the whole point when I spoke, was that he was like our true north. He was, that North Star, that whenever I felt lost, I would look to him to help me find my way.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, that generational impact that you're talking about, that ripple effect, when you find your true north.
Yeah.
That's it.
But can you imagine, how honored he would feel, to hear that, and to know that, as you were talking, one of the things that I think that, most people can relate to is, when we don't have that sense, right? When there's that internal question mark and so on. What's fascinating is when I think about, so for instance, at work, if I'm going to be coached, by a superior or something like that, but yet they don't really get a sense of what drives me, and I can't even tell them, it's really hard to even be in a relationship with someone who, and help them if they don't know truly what they value and what their values are, and so on. And then I even think about, in marriage. I mean, we've been married 22 years, and I think about, this idea of, loving each other. What's fascinating is it's not just a generic, if you really want a great marriage, if you really want a great friendship for that matter, but if it can't just be a real generic sense of, okay, be nice, make your wife coffee in the morning, and, whatever, rub her back once in a while, to have true intimacy with somebody, I need to know what lights me up, right? So I can actually share that with her, and vice versa. Otherwise, there's that question mark, there's that neediness, because, I'm expecting something from her because I have a felt need, but at the same time, I can't even describe to her what I'm even looking for to speak to that part of me, right? So a little bit of a side, rabbit trail there, but at the same time, I think the sense and then not having that sense, the stark contrast, no matter where you are and who you're with, can have such a powerful negative, and then of course positive impact.
Yeah, I mean, people feel when you are directionless, right, or heading in the wrong direction. I promise you, your family, your team, they'll feel that. Yeah. And so, but when you have a clear direction, right, and it's truly magnetized. Right? I love the idea of the true north that we kind of were getting at before, is it's fixed on a stable thing, right? So it creates consistency. It's not constantly shifting and changing. And that's one of the things we saw. We put out a questionnaire a while ago, to a bunch of people, that are really successful entrepreneurs. And while a lot of them felt like they had a sense of their authenticity, the one thing that we saw that was the biggest challenge for them is the struggle within is just feeling inconsistent. Sometimes I feel like I have clarity, right? The sky's, clear, and I have the path forward is really clear. But then, a week later, the clouds come back, right? And I'm struggling with finding my motivation. I'm struggling with, kind of feeling that real sense of purpose. But when you really get dialed into that true north, right? There's that sense of kind of consistency, a coherence, constancy that you're able to pull upon, right? That gives you the resolve, it gives you the strength, it gives you that confidence. You know what decisions you need to make, right? You know exactly where you're going. And it will get you the most consistent results that you can imagine, right? And again, because it's heading true north, it's the results you actually care about.
Love that.
As we're saying, we got to wrap up here. We wanted to at least just be able to position this concept of what it means, right, to really know what your true north identity is. Your identity sets your direction. Is your identity really anchored to the things that are most important and meaningful to you, right? Is it driven by something, right, that really is important? It's autonomously chosen. It's connected to your strengths and it has purpose that really matters to you, right? Is it connected to the strengths, your character strengths, right, and having an impact that you really, really care about? When you really have that clarity in life, each one of those areas is lit up. You're like, yes, yes, yes. Man, it makes you feel alive in a way that is just palpable. It gives you a deeper connection and commitment to the people around you and your environment. And it creates a generational ripple effect. It creates a legacy impact when you're heading true north. So we're going to create a series on this, right? We're going to dive deeper into, how to know when you're heading true north. What are the signs when you're clearly off course? And then what are the key factors? What are the things, the 3 indicators we'll dive deeper into? Not just saying follow your values, but let's go deeper than that. Like, let's tell you exactly what you need to do with your values in order to make those transformational, right? Let's understand exactly what you need to do to make sure that you're driven and motivated by the things that are leading true north. And how do you define those strengths that are so authentic and special to you, right? That you feel on fire, you feel uncrushable, right? When you're using those. So any last thoughts?
No, man, even when you said uncrushable, I just get goosebumps. And again, in some ways that seems like a little bit of an overstatement. At the same time, to have a real sense, a very real sense of confidence, in who you are, the things you're going to say yes to and no to, the things that you are passionate about and not, and all that. It's vital. And there is a sense of feeling really solid. So I love that word, uncrushable. I feel it most days, honestly, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah, it's such a stark contrast. I know for me, I felt very crushable, right? The first 30 years of my life, I felt fragile. I felt vulnerable, right? Like I'd put something out into the world and then I was like protecting myself, like, please don't hurt me, right?
I get
And
it.
now it's like, man, I really do. I feel the sense of security that I've never had in my life. I'm not perfect, right? Every day I've got to recommit to heading true north. It can be very
Absolutely.
easy.
Yeah.
There's so much at the world, right? If my compass is pointing magnetic true north, right, it's easy to get pulled in directions from the world that just get me off course. I look at social media and I see someone that seems like they're crushing it. Why are they having success? And what am I doing wrong? Why, right? And then often I find out that they're actually not having the success that I think that they are. So I got to stop paying attention and comparing myself to others. I got to stop looking to the world, right, to try and give me a sense of what the world's not equipped for it. It isn't, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes our family of origin isn't equipped for it. That's not a negative statement, right? My family of origin is amazing, right? But it's a tough thing trying to really dial that in. So we're going to help people, right? We're going to give people a really clear framework that we know it produces results that are unbelievably transformational. So we're excited to be going through this.
Awesome.
At the end of it, there will be a challenge too, right? We've got a 7-day challenge that we're putting together that we got a team working on, and it's going to be awesome, right? A 7-day challenge on how in 1 week, right, to kind of dial into those coordinates that are
Yeah.
heading true north, so that you can make consistently great decisions. So, all right, my
Awesome.
man. I hope that you have an awesome weekend. I think next Friday is Christmas Eve. So if you're available, maybe to do it on a different day, let's try and aim for But
let's do it.
all right, my man.
All right.
Have a good True North weekend.
Hey, you too.
Awesome.